Greetings, scholars. Time to continue our Module 4 notes with Lesson 11. For Lesson 11, you are going to be solving, so we're going to solve fraction word problems. Solve fraction word problems. Now these problems, let's make that look a little more like an E, these problems in particular are going to have addition, subtraction, and or multiplication. Could be just one, could be two, could be a mix of all three. Who knows? That's the surprise. Okay. Now this is lesson 11, so our Roman numeral is going to be a 10 plus one more. Go ahead and make sure we put our lines on that. We'll zoom in and get started. Now, what I'm going to do for this particular lesson is I'll give you some tips and tricks to get started. We'll talk about some things that you want to keep in mind while you are doing this. And then I've got at least one, maybe two, depending on how long it goes, example problems for us to work to together. So a little bit of writing today, folks, but you're all tough. All right, tips and tricks. So some things to remember. Number one, watch for clue words. Actually, I'm going to change watch for clue words / phrases. Watch for clue words and phrases. Clue words and phrases. Okay. Sometimes things like more than or less than will lead you to subtraction. If you see something that says all together, combined, usually that's addition. However, it could also be multiplication. You just want to read carefully, look for those key words and phrases that tell you what kind of operation you're going to be doing. Watch for clue words, phrases. Number two, use a tape diagram to visualize. I know how much everybody loves those. Use a tape diagram to visualize. Put an exclamation mark up here too. They're fun. You'll see in the example that I'm going to do, drawing a tape diagram really helps you see what's going on. Okay. Now, something else. Use common denominators. Use common denominators with adding and subtracting. Now there are times where having a common denominator will help you with multiplication items as well, but with multiplication it's not as important. With adding and subtracting you must have common denominators. Third exclamation mark. And the final tip / trick for now, if possible, and admittedly it won't always be, write an expression. Write an expression to solve. Write an expression to solve. Write something that you can work out. Okay, again, a bit of writing today. Let me give you an example. And yes, I do want you to copy this problem down. I shortened it a bit from where I found it. And I personalized it. Mrs. Fisher. We'll tell Mrs. Fisher that she was the star of this video. Mrs. Fisher brought 252 cookies. That's a lot of cookies. 252 cookies for a bake sale. Mrs. Fisher's always great about raising money for good charitable causes, so she's having a bake sale. She sold 3 3/4 of them. Now, hopefully you're thinking about what we did in class. How can we find 3/4 of them? Well, and what are them? What does them refer to? She sold 3/4 of them and gave 1/6 to parent. Actually, sorry folks, I skipped two very important words. And gave 1/6 of them, so there's that again. Gave 1/6 of them to parent volunteers. Feel free to pause the video and shake out that wrist. Whew. Okay. 2 more sentences to go. You're troopers, you can do this. Mrs. Fisher let the 7 student helpers split the rest. How many cookies did each helper, and I do mean student helper, how many cookies did each helper get? Whew, all right, shake out the wrist again. Here's our word problem. Mrs. Fisher brought 252 cookies for a bake sale. She sold 3/4 of them and gave 1/6 of them to parent volunteers. Mrs. Fisher let the 7 student helpers split the rest. How many cookies did each helper get? Well, 252 cookies, I don't think I want to make an array. That's going to be pretty crazy. So, looking at my tips and tricks, I'm going to use a tape diagram. Now, I know I skipped a tip and trick, so for right now, I'll just draw the tape. I won't do anything else with it. There we go. We'll go back and look at my first tip. Tip number 1 says, watch for clue words and phrases. Okay, well, I kept repeating 3/4 of them, 1/6 of them, fraction of. That means we are going to be multiplying. So I am going to need to find 3/4 of something. 3/4 of something. 3/4 of what? The cookies. 3/4 of the cookies. So 3/4 of 252. I also need to find 1/6 of them. Well, 1/6 of the cookies, 1/6 of 252. Okay? Now going back to the tape diagram. I could just do 3/4 in one tape diagram, 1/6 in another. I guess that would work. But there is a way that I can use one tape diagram for both. And actually, one of my students taught this to me, because when I originally did my notes, I did 2 separate diagrams, and I don't think you guys like that. So, take a look at 4ths. Take a look at 6ths. What would be a common denominator for 4ths and 6ths? 4 and 6 will both go into 12. 3/4 would be the same as 9/12. 1/6 would be the same as 2/12. Okay, that's not bad. I have to break this thing into 12 pieces, which I'm not excited about, but it's all right. We'll do our best. Let's split it in half. That usually helps me. Now I have to put 6 on that side, 6 on that side. I'm going to go ahead and split again. 2, 3, 2, 3. Let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Split this in half. 2, 3, 2, 3. And this entire tape diagram is just going to be the 252 cookies. Whew. All right. Well, I need to figure out what each of these little slivers would be. To do that, I am going to use some long division. 252, I'm going to scoot it all the way over here, so hopefully it's out of the way. 252 divided by 12. 12 goes into 2, no times. 12 goes into 25 twice. 2 times 12 is 24. Thanks, pencil. 25 minus 24 is 1. If I bring down the 2, 12 will go into 12 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. And there we go. Now I can do a few interesting things with this piece of information. Every single one of these is going to be 21. Now trying to cram 21 into every single one is going to be kind of a pain. So instead I am just going to write 1/12 is equal, oh, you know what? I did this before. Sorry, folks. 1/12 of 252, let's make sure we're writing this out properly, is equal to 21. Now, I can just take the shortcut and say, okay, if I have 9/12 of something, it's going to be 9 times 21. If I have 2/12 of something, it's going to be 2 times 21. And I'll write that out. But the fun thing is, if I look at those original numbers right up here, 9/12 and 2/12. Let's go ahead and finish this part. There's 42. Okay. And then 9/12, 9 times 21. That's going to equal 189. If I add these two together and subtract them, so subtract out the sold cookies, subtract out the parent cookies, that will give me 21 left over. Some of you may have noticed 9, 10, 11. Mrs. Fisher got rid of 11/12 of the cookies. If 11/12 of the cookies are gone, sold or given to student or parents, then there's only 1/12 remaining. 1/12 for the 7 students to split. 1/12 means 21 cookies. 21 cookies divided by 7 students means each student received 3 cookies. Now, this is already kind of a long video. We're at about 13 minutes almost. Well, over 13 minutes. So we won't be doing another problem. But we will do more in class. There are different ways to do them also. There are different approaches. Some of you, I know, again, are not comfortable with the tape diagram. Some of you want to add the fractions right away. You saw how 11/12 we can do that, but we have to be very, very careful. There are a few ways of getting to this answer. This is probably, I think, the most straightforward one, and it combines everything we've done so far. And like I said, we'll go over more in class. Okay, I'm done rambling. If you have any questions, bring them to school, and I will see you next time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.